What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson, and this is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. We have been receiving a bunch of questions from you guys, and an overarching theme with them is that you want to know a little bit more about us, about our relationship, or just, kind of how we operate as individuals. So we thought that on weeks that we don't have any burning topics that we were, really fired up to discuss, that we would pick a couple of those and talk about them a little bit more lighthearted. That way you know who you're listening to on a little deeper level. So we were excited about it, and it's also kind of fun just to talk about that, riff off a little bit, because there are days when we record these first thing in the mornings, and then like today we're recording it at the end of the night. And after a long day of work, it's kind of nice to kind of brain dump and just talk about something a little bit
more lighthearted.
So that being said, if you have any questions or any things you're intrigued by, want to hear from us, you can submit those too.
You can submit them to the email address, pod@lexijwellness.com. You can submit them to Instagram, or also submit them in the YouTube comments.
Yep. So we picked a couple of them. We are going to talk. Someone asked about our love languages, which I think is really interesting. And mine has for sure switched with age and just priorities. So that'll be interesting to talk about. And then the other one was our dogs. So if you follow me on Instagram, I share on my stories our dogs a lot. So they all three, we have 3 dogs. I guess we'll get into that later. Do you want to talk about dogs first or love languages first?
Let's finish with dogs.
Okay. We don't deserve dogs. Okay, so love languages. I am a believer, and I was thinking as we just decided on this topic, I'm honestly not sure. I think I have an idea of how I show, like what I show is my love language. You know what I'm saying? Like giving and receiving, they're 2 different things when it comes to love languages. So the one that I used to prefer to receive was quality time. And I think now it's shifted more to acts of service. And I don't know if quality time is still up there, but acts of service I think has kind of edged out for my top one. And I don't know if it's just like a matter of me taking on more responsibility. So it's like, oh wow, if you help me take something off my plate, that goes a long way. And it's not even just like intimate love languages, like between you and I, like that's how my friends, I think, show affection also toward me. But the way that I give the love language, I can't decide. So maybe you could provide a little insight on that one.
Yeah. Kind of like you said, I think it may have shifted over time. It's kind of hard to tell, because I think that for you get a lot of enjoyment out of like giving gifts.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was going to say. But
because
I'm like,
you put a lot of pride into gifts, and you've surprised me on a number of occasions with gifts. I know that brings you a lot of joy, and a lot of times you have a hard time holding back from giving me gifts, and waiting. Having the patience to wait.
I love giving gifts. I feel really awkward receiving gifts, so that's definitely not my preferred love language. But I love giving gifts, and I love coming up with something that I know that person's gonna love, whether it's you or it's one of my friends or my family. Like, there's just so much thought and intention that goes behind a gift that person picks something out, especially for you. I have like an ongoing note in my phone where if you listed something, or we were walking together and walked past a store and you mentioned, man, I really like that, chances are I'll like snag my phone and make a note of it. And if I could surprise you and you could remember that one time that you mentioned it, then it's just like, it brings me so much joy.
Yeah.
I try to be better about, I have to be very intentional about it, because sometimes I fail at assuming that my appreciation is known or my feelings are spoken when they're not, or like just go unsaid. Mm-hmm. But words of affirmation is something that I have to be very intentional about. It's what I am working on, because I know that's yours.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Well, I'm leading into it. Yeah. So yours are words of affirmation, or I'm assuming they are. You could update me, and the rest of I can learn in real time with the rest of the audience if they've shifted.
Nope, it's gifts, and you better give me a good one.
Well, you're in luck.
No, it is words of affirmation. I wish it wasn't, but it is.
No, that's good.
Yeah. No, it's a very vulnerable thing for me because I don't know. I guess maybe that's just being a male and you don't like admitting that words affect you so much, but that is my nature and words affect me a lot.
So would you say, and like the way that you said that, when words affect you, would you say like on the reverse side of things that negative words affect you really harshly as well?
Yes.
More so than anything else?
Yes. Yeah. I remember negative words stick in my mind for a long time. Positive words also, are great to me, but I'll forget them easier than I will a negative word.
Oh, same. We had this discussion like last night. I can recite like mean messages or things that I've received, unfortunately, just like at random.
Yeah, and you have a better memory with a lot of that type of thing than me, because I think I'd kind of do a brain dump at some point because I have to. Otherwise, it eats me alive. So at some point, I just have to try to wash my memory of certain things in order for me to like just move on.
I think my brain prioritized a lot of skewed things when it did the dump. It like forgot how to do algebra or anything I learned
time
in
zones.
Yeah, I can't manage or operate time zones. But yeah, if you ever said anything mean to me, I'm never gonna forget it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make it negative. I was just curious as you said that. I was like, I wonder if also it's like two sides of the same coin.
How so?
Well, just because you said words of affirmation are your love language, so
giving and receiving
are negative. No,
yeah.
I meant like, so would negative words be like something that affects you a lot more harshly than anything else?
Yeah. I suppose so. As opposed to, the alternative love languages, which are, what are there 4 or 5?
I think there are 5. So it's quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving, and then physical touch.
Physical touch. I always forget that one. That one's off my radar.
Yeah, you and I are not.
I mean, like we obviously touch, and I probably do it more than I realize. But yeah, I don't think that that's something that I have to have, like to know that I have somebody's love. Like I'm not an overly touchy-feely person just with people in general. Now I feel like so much of this goes back to the way you're raised. I feel like there's a lot that goes back to your childhood and like your interactions with people as a child, mm-hmm. be it your parents or whatever. But I know for a fact that words play such a large role in my life because of my dad. Not in a bad way, but I know that words are his love language. Whether or not he knows that, I know that.
Yeah, I think you're onto something too also. And it makes a lot of sense because, so acts of service being mine, and I'm thinking about like my childhood. So there were 4 of us kids, and then my family had foster kids a lot. Like my parents would take in foster kids. They were foster parents. So 4 of us, my cousin came to live with us, and he ended up spending, like he went through high school with us. And then at any time we would have a handful of foster kids, and they would be there for a week, and some stayed over a year. So we had a house full of kids. My dad is a fireman. So he worked 24-hour shifts. He worked 24 on, 48 off, but he also had moonlighty jobs where he poured concrete and installed fire extinguishers. He built fences, things like that, on his days off. So he was constantly busy. My mom was putting herself through school while also working and managing all these kids. So like an act of service, if you could, again, take something off their plate, that was a big deal, and that was really appreciated. So I think that you're onto something there.
Yeah.
I can definitely trace it back.
Yeah, as you were telling that, I was kind of retracing my steps through my childhood and trying to like pinpoint potential things that would have led to me being the way I am with, pertaining to the love language. And it's hard for me. I'm not a psychologist, so it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what it is, and I can't necessarily put it into words, but I know that the interactions that I had as a child and the way that love was communicated to me from my mom and my dad, that words were the most important thing, and how they communicated to them, how they communicated them to me, and what an impact it made on me. Now, I'm sure some of that is just person to person, and what their nature is, but I do think that some of that is nurture from your upbringing.
Yeah, after you mentioned that, it absolutely is, or it certainly plays a part at least. How do you show love?
I think it's also words.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
I think it's words. And I feel like maybe it's just recency bias because I've been traveling so much, but quality time is really important for us right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Whenever, I guess I probably, or, anybody doesn't really realize they miss something until they don't have it. And we usually spend as much time as possible with each other, every day. So whenever you're not here, it's just like, well, now what? What do I do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you work out of the house. So I think a lot of people, that could be another thing that people are curious about. Brett doesn't work from home where I work from home. And then
I just work constantly whenever you're not here because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I have to occupy my time somehow.
Well, and because you obviously have to be in the office at some point or at a certain point in the morning. So you have to wake up extra early. So I wake up extra early so we could spend that morning together. We can do our coffee and reading, and we can work out, and we can have breakfast before you leave. So, I think quality time definitely is a way that both of us show love, and maybe we're just not as cognizant of it because it's something that we're very just kind of in the routine of doing. But we go out of our way to make sure that we are spending that time.
Right. If somebody
I don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn to work from home.
Right. Yeah, if you start dissecting your day, if somebody asked me a deeper set of questions, they might be able to divulge, some subset love languages that I have. But I do think that predominantly words are what mine are.
Yeah, I would agree. It's interesting. I do think that it's interesting that you mentioned gift giving is one also, because I was kind of auditing myself, just thinking of what mine would be, and that's what I was thinking because I really do enjoy giving gifts, but I don't know, I would have never expected that to be one, and I've kind of grown into it, but it's something that now that I have more means to do, which I didn't when I was younger. I remember when you and I first started dating, I was so stressed at any birthday or holiday or anniversary. I was like, oh my gosh, you're already the hardest person to shop for, and I literally am donating plasma twice a week, working 2 part-time jobs. I can't scrape pennies together to get this guy a gift.
Yeah, I think that the more I think about it, so at this phase of my life, I pretty much I get what I want for myself. Now there are tons of things that I have on my vision board, and that I still have dreams and aspirations to have that I don't have. But I mean, these are things that you're just not going to go buy off a shelf. So point being, what I think I value at this point, of course, if somebody gives me a really meaningful gift and it's something that I'm blown away by, or I would have never expected, them to think of, then yeah, that's awesome. And that's going to mean a lot. It's probably going to take me back, but I think it means a lot more to me at this point to receive a card with a really sentimental message in it.
Do you have an example?
I'm getting super vulnerable as it is. So
I think it's really cute. Brett's birthday was early March, and as I had mentioned, Brett is the hardest person to shop for ever. So my dad had texted me, and he was like, I don't know what to get Brett. Should I just get him a gift card? And then gift cards feel so impersonal. And I was like, honestly, he does not need a gift card. He doesn't need anything. I think it would just be really cool if you just wrote him a letter. I know for a fact, both men are very as hard externally as my dad may seem and like big and tough as they both seem, they're both softies. And I know for a fact that my dad probably cried writing it. Brett cried receiving it. It was so cute. I love that. And it just goes to show words of affirmation mean a lot to you. And if my dad's listening to this, then this is his first acknowledgement that he did cry over it. I told him.
Glad we're sharing.
I think it's sweet. You're comfortable with your masculinity. You can admit that you have tear ducts that are fully functioning.
It's true.
Was that the last time you cried?
Yes.
When was the last time I cried?
Probably yesterday.
Probably. That's something that I think is probably unknown or not as well known or conveyed from the outside. I'm a lot more sensitive than I think I seem. You think?
Oh, 1,000%. You have pretty active tear ducts.
I do. My lacrimal glands are operating at peak capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably not very well known.
Yeah, that I'm a.
I mean, you're tough, but in another sense, you're also a softie.
Yeah, when those Facebook like polls that they would always tag your parents in, and they're like, name your child that's the smartest and the most competitive, and we would always try to have our parents answer them. Most sensitive I was always named as the most sensitive.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Or Cody. My brother's pretty sensitive too.
Yeah.
I love
Cody can get me more emotional than most people.
I love that the men in my family are that way though. And they like literally all of them are. Both of my grandpas are very, very sensitive.
Come to think of it, I feel like I've become a lot more that way since I've been exposed to your family, because I think it's been I feel like there's been almost just an acknowledgement that being male doesn't mean that you can't show emotion, which I still have, I think, a little bit of a hard time doing, because men in my family do not show like that sort of emotion. Like, I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry.
Now we're really getting into it.
I think I may have seen my grandpa cry once. I think it was a happy tear though. It wasn't a sad tear.
Yeah. No, both of my grandfathers are very sensitive, and like my grandpa Ed, he gets choked up if you like show him a good review of Lexi J Wellness. Like, it's so sweet.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do think that plays into this to a certain extent. It's almost like it was permission.
Oh, well, that was really sweet. I feel like we're uncracking, or we're unlocking a code here. That's cool. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Cody. Do you have anything else to say as far as love languages go?
I think I've gotten vulnerable enough.
There's no reason. I mean, we're beyond being embarrassed.
Dogs.
Let's talk dogs. Okay. On a very, very happy note, there's nothing sad. We had a scare with one of our dogs last month, and we'll share that. So we have 3 dogs. We have an English bulldog, and his name is Butler. And he was the first dog that we got together. We got him while we were dating, and in college. And my family, at least, has always said, if you get a dog while you're dating, it's destined to, a breakup is just destined to happen. Like, we have way too many instances or examples where that happened. So they were against it, which is of course why we didn't really share with anyone that we were getting this dog.
Anybody.
Until we had to borrow my parents' car. So, backstory. We'll start with Butler. Butler is an English bulldog, and we got him the day before New Year's Eve in 2016. And a few months before that, Brett would have told you that English bulldogs were the ugliest dogs ever. He hated them. Just had no interest. He didn't hate them. He just had no interest in them.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought they were very ugly.
Very ugly.
Yeah.
Yes. But I drug him to Petland, and I got the wrinkliest little roly-poly bulldog, and it was so cute. And we played with it in this tiny little box that they have at Petland, and it was then that Brett fell in love with English bulldogs. He thought they were so ugly, they're cute, like a pug. Like you're so ugly.
English bulldogs are way better than pugs.
They really are, yeah. And Butler is the cutest. So, in true Brett fashion, he was very thorough on his research. Like, this man doesn't buy a coffee without doing due diligence. And if he's going to get a living, breathing being, then he's going to get the exact color he wants and make sure it doesn't have an underbite and make sure all of these things. So he's doing research, and we learned a lot about English bulldogs and how the breeding is a lot more intricate and like extensive than we expected, because apparently they have to have C-sections. Most of them have to be all of them artificially inseminated. And their litters are really small, which means that they are not nearly as, you can't find them like you can find a lab or a golden retriever. So there was very little options on purchasing an English bulldog in Missouri or the near states. And the ones that we did, the color wasn't the color we liked or anything like that. So he scoured the internet a little bit further and went overseas.
The World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web. And he found this English bulldog dealer.
Breeder.
On the black market.
She's a breeder.
Yes. Okay. So
Victoria.
Her name is Victoria. Shout out Victoria.
I can't pronounce her last name because it's Ukrainian.
Yes. So she's from the Ukraine, and Brett found this random breeder in the Ukraine that had an English bulldog that was the exact same color we wanted. It was going to be ready to go home with anyone in the near future, and we're like, it's perfect. Except it's in the Ukraine. And we were so hesitant, and it almost borderline premature embarrassment, because we're like, I think we're getting bamboozled. I think we're getting scammed. There's no way that we're talking to this random
I did
stranger.
A lot of due diligence.
He did. And if you know Brett,
I contacted references in the U.S.
There have been people that have been hired for six-figure jobs that didn't have their references called on like this woman did for Brett. If
I'm buying a dog from a woman in the Ukraine, I'm going to make sure that this is legit.
If there's one thing that I can describe you as, it's thorough. It's so funny. One thing, a little side note. If Brett ever gets you a gift and it's anything substantial, so when I was in college, he got me a laptop. And because he's so thorough and does his research so well, the month leading up to Christmas, Brett all of a sudden became the expert at every single laptop feature. We were in the library studying for finals.
That's
and
my
Brett,
tell.
It is your tell. And Brett's like, did you see that guy's Mac? It's the 13.5-inch screen. It has the adjustable thing on the side. And he would list the exact features. And I'm like, when did you start working for Apple? And he would be, that's the new model. That one doesn't have the upgraded feature. Same thing when he bought my engagement ring. It was a little suspicious when Brett started noting princess cut and things like that on other people's diamond rings. And I'm like, this is...
Need to learn to shut up, I guess.
You're thorough to a fault. That is your tell. But Brett did his due diligence in Victoria and the English bulldogs. So we had to go. So she was going to ship him to Chicago. We live in Missouri, and mind you, this is the dead of winter, and it is very cold in both places, but especially Chicago. My car was never going to be reliable enough to make it to Chicago.
Oh, no.
It also didn't have operating heat or air conditioning, so it would have been miserable. But we borrowed my parents' car. Did not tell, I don't think, anyone else.
I definitely didn't tell my parents because I knew that they would freak out.
We didn't tell your parents. We had him for several weeks until
I just showed up with him.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the scariest days of my life, is when you were holding Butler in your parents' kitchen, and I was like, I can't run. I don't have a car here. This is going to be bad. But anyway, Butler was shipped from the Ukraine to Chicago. Butler has a passport. It's so wild. But the wildest thing is that this is apparently common practice because you go to like a warehouse. So obviously he's not going to fly in on Southwest and walk out of a terminal. He gets shipped to like,
pretty cool.
It would have been cool. He has a passport. I mean, he's pretty cool. Gets shipped to a warehouse in the back of O'Hare, and you basically take a number. Literally, they're like, this is yours. Mm-hmm. You have take a number, and they start unloading these gigantic pallets that are saran wrapped. Like,
I was very concerned that there was just going to be a giant pallet full of crates with dead dogs inside. Because
to this day, I have no idea how
I don't know if
they survived.
They like poked holes in it, like for air. I don't know. It was strange.
Had to have been 10 hours.
It was it was a 10-hour flight.
Saran wrapped, and they started pulling these crates as they like cut open the saran wrap that was layers thick, and they're calling numbers, and out comes like crates with cats, crates with full-size labradoodles, and
it was bizarre. There was all sorts of animals that people were picking up.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a little suspicious and weird that we were picking up this puppy, but apparently it was just common practice.
Dogs everywhere.
So we got Butler. He was the cutest little roly-poly ever. He was so wrinkly. And now he was
so happy to get out of that little cage.
Yeah, he was. He's going to be 7. Is that right?
That can't be possible, but yeah, I think that is correct.
He's going to be 7 in October, which is very, very sad to think about because bulldogs don't have that long of lifespans.
He's a healthy boy.
He is very healthy, and
Butler is a fit-looking bulldog for a bulldog.
Butler is also
It's a lean machine.
Perfect example of diet being the determining factor of your...
The guy doesn't move.
Because he maybe gets 400 steps a day, and that
counting
is
all
counting all four legs. Yes. But we manage his food. So Butler is the perfect example that, managing your diet's going to be the biggest tell-all in how your body composition is, because the man looks lean.
Yeah.
But he sleeps.
If you didn't believe it before, come watch Butler.
He sleeps probably 20 hours a day. The man, he lives.
Either that or no, there's no other explanation.
Yeah. So next up is Delta. Delta is a chocolate lab, and we got her just after Thanksgiving in, what year was that? 2018?
She's 2 years younger than Butler, so yes.
Okay, so that was the year we got married. And we got her in the fall of 2018. She is a wild woman. She has a lot of energy. She'll be 5 this year, but still very much has puppy energy. But she's so smart, and she's...
Yeah, she is incredibly intelligent. I taught her so much. She was just a sponge as a puppy, as are... a lot of puppies, but she is like gifted smart, and that's not just me as a proud dog parent, but like she is very intelligent. Smart. She looks like a total spaz half the time, and whenever people come over, they're like, this dog is probably the worst dog ever, but she is highly intelligent. She just has a lot of energy. Whenever she gets it burnt out, like if we get her, whenever we get her outside and go on a walk and then bring her back, like, then it's just kind of like smooth sailing, but she's got a lot of energy.
Yeah. Delta definitely prefers Brett also. You think Butler prefers me?
No.
I don't either. I think they both like you better.
I feel like Butler's taken a liking to you for sure ever since you've been working from home, and been with him more.
Yeah.
But Delta still has a strong preference to me.
For sure. Yeah, because you trained her. I read somewhere that
there's like a level of respect, because I disciplined her.
The bitch doesn't respect me. Literally.
No respect.
I read somewhere that apparently like dogs, female dogs tend to like cling to males more and vice versa, where male dogs...
Really?
I think that may have been made up. That's why I was just trying to prove that theory, hoping that Butler preferred me, but I don't think either of them do.
Well,
but the final dog, what were
I was going to add to that. I've read this, and I think it's very true, that generally speaking, male dogs' love language is I love you, and female dog love languages are please love me.
Did you just make this up?
No, I read that, and I read that online a long time ago. Whenever I was like deep into the training of dogs, and That was an article or part of an article that I read, and I thought that was very true because I've been around both a lot.
What dog wrote that article? Scooby-Doo?
Think about it, though. Delta, she is a very loving dog, and she wants to cuddle a lot, which I know that varies dog to dog. That doesn't necessarily, it's not a determining factor of how they show their love, but on the whole subject matter of love languages, so to speak.
You really tied that in well.
With males, I think generally speaking, it's more of a genuine, like, I love you affection. And with the female dogs, it's more, please love me.
Interesting. Well, we do have a third dog, and Sadie did not start with us. So Sadie is actually my father-in-law, Brett's dad's dog. She was a duck hunting dog, and she's a black lab, pretty gray right now because she's an old girl. Is she 11?
She's just got a little bit of a gray beard and hooves.
her hooves are gray. Is she 11?
Yeah, I think she's coming up on 12.
Yeah, she's an old girl, and we had a little bit of a scare last month because she was down and out, but she had some GI
she just had
issues.
Yeah, she had a real upset tummy.
But Sadie came to us 2 years ago because she was getting fixed, and the vet is actually in the town where we live, not where my father-in-law lives. So Brett had brought her down, taken her to the vet. She had this procedure, and because she was an outside dog before, they wanted to make sure the stitches didn't get infected, so she was just hanging out here while she recovered. And 2 years later, she never left. So here she is. Sadie's part of the crew. She also sleeps a ton, but she is such a doll. She is the softest, sweetest little thing ever. And it would just be cruel to send her back now because she has gotten very accustomed to being an inside dog now.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have it in me to send her back outside into the elements because, I mean, they have like a pretty good setup, but she's getting so old and her body's starting to show the signs of age, and
yeah, it's sad.
I didn't want to send her back out. But for a long
time, that was like not a conclusive thing where she was going to stay with us, and I was like, so is this dog ours now? Like,
I was non-committal.
Yeah, you were so non-committal, and I asked that so many times. I'm like, is she staying here or no? But here she is 2 years later, and she's mine.
She's a sweet girl.
Yeah.
But you didn't know her before, whenever she was a spry young pup, and she was a wild woman before.
Yeah.
And she has
before you and I.
And she has a totally different personality than any other lab I think I've ever been around. Because even whenever she was a younger dog, she didn't really care about other dogs. She didn't care to like show them any attention. Like if she's in a room with 100 other dogs, she doesn't care about those other dogs. And if they pay attention to her, she's probably going to get pretty pissed and snap at them. She just wants to be like by you, and she wants to be loved by you. It's another example of what I was describing before. But she is like a super, super affectionate dog. And if she doesn't like receive affection, I think she actually gets emotionally hurt.
Now this is making me want to wrap this podcast up so we can go snuggle our dogs.
But she is a very good dog. But now that she's older and she doesn't have the energy, now it's just a bundle of love. She's a good dog.
I think my biggest takeaway from this episode is I think we had a breakthrough, Brett, with your love language and your vulnerability. I was super excited about that. Gonna write in my diary tonight. Dear diary, Brett has emotions. All right. Unless you have anything else to add, I think we're good here. But if you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to hear us talk about, please submit them, as Brett had mentioned, to that podcast, or feel free to message us on Instagram, comment them on the YouTube page. But we're having a lot of fun kind of, having a variety of content here, both a little bit more serious self-developmental content, and then also just getting to know the people that you're hearing from, because I know that I'm always genuinely interested in the personalities and the lives of the people that I consume a lot of content from. So I imagine that that's kind of helpful and just intriguing. So if there's anything that you guys want to know about us, feel free to shoot us those messages. But until then, we'll talk to you next time.